This is the AERO 15 from Gigabyte. It has a 15-inch 4K OLED display, RGB keyboard, 10th gen Core i7 processor, NVIDIA RTX 2070 Super graphics card, 32 gigs of RAM, 512 gig PCI solid state, and Wi-Fi 6 to say the least. In today's video, we're going to find out if this laptop is the answer to your content creation or gaming needs, and we'll put it to the test against my PC, which has very similar specs, to see if a laptop is finally an affordable competitor. So full disclosure, I was sent this laptop by Gigabyte to review. However, this is not a paid review, no money exchanged hands, and this bad boy is being sent back to Gigabyte at the end of this review. My initial impressions are, oh my gosh, this is a stunning laptop. The second your hands touch it, you realize it's an aluminium metal body, which gives it a very premium feel. The only plasticky rubber you're gonna find around the screen bezels or the rear fan grille section. On the left, you'll find a HDMI 2.0, a mini DisplayPort 1.4, a USB 3.2 Gen 1, audio jack, and an RJ45 Ethernet connector. In the center, you've got a webcam which has a physical hardware cover, great for privacy. And on the right, you have two USB 3.2 Gen 1 ports, a USB-C Thunderbolt 3, a UHS 2 SD card reader, and a DC jack in for 230 watts of power. This is great to see, as although the laptop is only 2 centimeters thick, they've managed to fit a huge amount of ports essential to daily use, so you don't need to carry any dongles around. The only thing I don't like here is the placement of the power port. I prefer this to be in the corner or rear of the laptop, opposed to halfway down the right-hand side. The placement can be understood when you look under the hood. The entire rear region of the laptop is occupied by intense cooling, which Gigabyte are calling their WindForce Infinity config. Dual 71 blade fans spanning 8 centimeters with 5 heat pipes dissipating heat from the CPU and GPU. I'd like to mention that with the standard fan curve, it does get quite hot sitting on your lap whilst gaming, especially at 4K. But with the built-in max fan toggle, you can dissipate that heat within seconds and then just turn it back down to normal. Speaking of gaming, this laptop does come in a gaming variant. Everything is the same as what you see here, but instead of 60Hz 4K OLED panel, you get a 120Hz full high-def IPS panel. So depending on what display you choose, the laptop can be tailored to your daily life. Now this doesn't mean you can't game on the OLED model after you've got your work done, because you really should. The 4K OLED panel is stunning. It's incredibly color accurate with Pantone certification and 100% DCI-P3 color gamut coverage. After using this laptop for a couple of weeks, it's just made me want to get an OLED TV because these screens are incredible. The color accuracy I mentioned is locked in at factory with an ISCC profile baked into Windows. This will save you roughly $600 on your own calibration device. However, if you wipe the laptop, you're gonna lose that calibration. Don't fear, because you can just download the Gigabyte Control Center utility from their website and re-enable it there. This utility holds controls for many functions on the laptop, such as your per key RGB. This is managed under the Fusion tabs, and you can set a variety of patterns and effects. The gradient isn't as smooth as I've seen on my K95, but it is per key RGB, as they say, and I prefer to leave them solid colors anyway. An awesome feature here is you can set any key as a macro. So if you don't use, say, the number pad or your function keys across the top row, then these can easily be converted into custom key mappings or combo presses. You can also adjust your fan curve here. I just set it to gaming, and you'll also find easy overclocking tools for CPU frequency and GPU wattage. This laptop also has AI. Buzzword, I know. But it actually does something. It memorizes your overclocking settings, and then depending on what application type you have launched, it'll tweak them to get best performance. So if it detects a game is running, it'll favor the GPU. And if it notices a rendering program, then puts more power to CPU. This means if you have or haven't done any overclocking to squeeze more performance, with AI turned on, it's going to overclock and boost it as far as it can. So does the AI actually do anything and increase performance? Yes, and you'll see in the benchmarks in just a moment. Now I was quite shocked to see in the killer Wi-Fi 6 control center that you can set up a tethered network or custom hotspot from the laptop. This is great if you're in a hotel that allows you to connect one device for free, or you have devices such as a gaming console which can't get through captive portals. Rendering a travel router that I usually take with me useless. Speaking of useless, the webcam is mounted at the bottom of the display. This means not only a bad angle for most, but looking into the screen looks incredibly unnatural. You have to look down to look into the lens. And if I'm typing away, taking notes in a meeting, it's going to look like spiders are invading, and it's not a great time. Typing on the keyboard is all right. It's not my favorite keyboard and won't win any awards. I'm typically borrowing my wife's MacBook Pro or otherwise using mechanical brown switches, but it does get the job done, and I do really love having a full-size numpad. All right, performance. How do all those specs translate into everyday use? Well, I run some benchmarks to test the laptop, and these scores are kind of useless unless you have something to compare them to. So I decided to run them on my similarly spec'd gaming PC as well to see if a laptop can beat out a liquid-cooled big rig. For a fair fight, I did take out a stick of RAM, taking my 64 gig of memory down to 32. So now my desktop PC is pretty much the same, just one generation behind. If we take a look at the results from 3D Mark's TimeSpy, the desktop PC beats out the laptop with a higher GPU score. However, if we turn the AI on of the laptop, it actually gets a boost in its GPU and a cut to its CPU. So you can see that AI is noticing this application wants GPU performance, and that actually boosts its overall score. Same thing in FirmMark. So although the desktop PC only has a 2070 and the laptop has a 2070 Super, the laptop has the Max Q, so it's not as high performing as a desktop card. However, it still has great points here, and it loses about 4% performance at its max temp of 78 degrees. Cinebench has an interesting result on the laptop where AI actually hindered single core performance but boosted multi-core threading capabilities, which is interesting because this is a more multi-thread benchmark. All right, so looking at the benchmarks, it's fair to say the desktop PC beats out the laptop in almost every test. However, in real-world performance, the laptop is very impressive. Here we have a 4K timeline with 8 minutes long with a mixture of 4K raw footage, compressed 1080p, and game recording from the Rift VR headset. That means we've got a variety of formats and compression ratios, and this boy doesn't hold back. So the desktop PC was 3 minutes 30 to render the video and then 5 minutes 15 seconds to finish writing to disk. But the laptop came blazing fast at 3 minutes 7 seconds to render and 3:25 to finish writing to disk. Way quicker. With AI turned on though, it was slower, 3 minutes 32 to render and 3 minutes 43 to write to disk. However, this is where the AI got very interesting and I was very surprised to see it actually work. After about 7 or so renders, the AI improved its performance in Premiere Pro. On the 7th render, the laptop was able to pull off 3 minutes and 6 seconds for the render and 3 minutes 26 seconds for the write, back in par with AI disabled. So two really interesting things are happening here. One, the laptop's AI is realizing that whatever tweaks it's making is reducing performance and it's going back to whatever the standard split between CPU and GPU was. And two, well, the laptop has a PCIe solid state drive. I mentioned this drive at the start of the video, and now we're starting to see it come back to blitz the desktop PC. If we check out the benchmark for the drive's read and write performance, the laptop has a read performance of 2,443 megabytes and 1,528 megabytes write. That is 2.4 gigabytes per second, which is blazing quick, and that's why after rendering the timeline, it's able to write the information to disk so much faster than the desktop PC. So as a creator, this is great for you because the laptop's able to get information blazing quick. Like 2.4 gigabytes per second is insane speeds. Now, if you're a gamer, I did run benchmarks in Tomb Raider. These are all default settings. In real world use, you would get better performance by lowering your anti-aliasing, shadows, turning off bloom and other lighting effects. In Counter-Strike, I was able to sustain 60 FPS at 4K and over 144 Hz at 1080p. So no matter which monitor you choose, you should be able to hit max FPS in non-intensive esports titles. Now, whether you decide to go with a 4K creator panel or 1080p gaming panel, the laptop is still great for virtual reality. I can simply plug in my VR headset into the USB-C port for portable VR fun. This is a big selling point of gaming laptops because you're able to take it to a friend's house or maybe to a client and have portable PC power for virtual reality. And of course, you can always plug the laptop into a larger monitor for gaming or design work via the HDMI or display ports. But the biggest difference between it and maybe a desktop PC is fan noise. Now, I don't know how accurate this app is, but it says that when the fans are at idle, it's at 30 decibels, and when they're ramped up when rendering, it's 40 decibels. Either way, this is what the fans sound like at idle. And here's what they sound like on the gaming curve running at max temp. And this is them at 100%. But you'll probably never ever hear them at that 100%. It's just great for cooling the laptop down. Okay, so how much does it cost? Well, it's going to retail around 4,000 Australian dollars, so it's not for everybody. But if you were to run the numbers of a comparable gaming PC, such as my desktop one that's $3,000, then that's not bad, especially because this has a screen and a keyboard and a mouse. But we'll just mainly talk about the screen. That's a 4K OLED panel. The only other OLED panel that's kind of off the shelf is the new 48-inch CX screen from LG. It's a TV and it's $2,800. So if you were to take $1,000 gap between a game PC and the laptop's $4,000, $1,000 for a 4K OLED panel at 15-inch, not a bad price, especially because it's also been calibrated by Pantone. The only other thing I want to mention is the new 30 series NVIDIA cards have just been released. So this has an older 20 series card. So either you'll see this on sale, which you could pick up probably for a bargain, or wait until there's a 30 series model that comes out from Gigabyte. But either way, the price range of the AERO laptop for performance, I was actually really surprised and quite happy to probably use this as a daily device. If you liked today's video, thumbs it. If you loved it, sub it. My name's Cam and I make tech vids. And I want to know, are you team desktop or laptop? Or both? Have you got one of each? I used to be team laptop. Here's a photo of me at a LAN party as a kid just smashing games, full nerd mode engaged. I loved that portability sake. I wasn't lugging a screen and a PC like all my mates. I was all about that laptop life. It's only now that I've finished school and uni that I've got my desktop PC. Check out another video up here or a suggestion there, and I'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching. See ya.